Oh, we are live. Well, welcome in everybody to another live episode of the Weekly Show. I'm Jonathan Goudeau, aka JJ Smooth. This is my co-host, former UCO All-MIAA back Daunte McGee. I think Saturday went about as well as one could probably hope. I mean, we had a dominant win. I think we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish there. What are your thoughts on UCO's 44-17 win Saturday, Dante?
I think just all three phases of the game just played to the best of their ability. Kind of like I said, Missouri Southern, they're a team that just isn't going to quit, and so I think there was definitely growth that was shown from the weeks before. That maybe at times where a drive might have stalled out, or maybe when I have got off the field on third down, we was able to have that happen. So even though I think we were the better team, I think that you still have to go out there and play the game and actually show and prove that you're the better team. And I think that that's what UCO was able to do. So it was a good win. It was a good way to send the seniors off with that type of win right there. But yeah, I just think all three phases just played extremely well.
And then I think that's might be the frustrating part of the season, right? I feel like we've seen at times, Pitt, Emporia, Saturday, that when we do that, we're a very tough team to beat, but we just haven't done that consistently enough this season. What do you feel like, we can do in the last game Saturday to position ourselves to have, more consistency heading into next season?
I think, yeah, I mean, it's kind of something that's built throughout the season, and especially once you get to the back end of the season, just kind of, establishing that, hey, the people who are going to continue to play on, not only that they're getting quality good reps, but that also it's reps that is building for the future. So I think that it's something that's kind of already started with guys getting more experience of just week to week and just stepping up in different moments and just getting opportunities there. So I think it's something that really and truly it's not like you want to just sub in and just play, all the guys who still have 2 or 3 years left. No, it's you don't want to disrespect the guys, have put in the effort, and then also you want to put the best players out there regardless of how much time they have left. So I think you kind of just continue to go out there and play the game, but also recognize, and it's kind of something that should have happened throughout the year, that there are moments where you can get guys quality reps in the game and then not necessarily have to burn the responsibilities just yet. So I think that's kind of one thing to keep in mind is that there are going to be time and opportunities for those guys to get reps, and if you feel confident in them and they have shown that they are in the playbook, they're getting their film in, and they build confidence and just throughout the week in practice, then definitely get them in.
We have our first question of the evening from Mr. Doug Williams. First, Mr. Williams, I appreciate your support over the past few seasons. I really hope that your grandson can end with a win Saturday. His question is, I think I run off tackle. There that run up the middle seems to struggle at times. What are our thoughts? I agree with your statement here. I think especially we saw that Saturday. I know Missouri Southern had like a 320-pound defensive tackle. I know Gabe's been banged up some too. I'm not sure if he's playing at full strength or not. But I've noticed we've had a tough time running between the tackles between the tackles this season. I think on the outside, you look, Jalen's had most of his success there. I think most of Will's runs either end up bouncing to the outside, or when it's going towards the outside, there just seems to be more space there, and it's weird because last year we were able to do both. Dante, you have any thoughts on that? Do you feel like our outside runs this year have been more consistent, maybe better than our inside runs?
I would have to agree with that. I think if you look at kind of like you just explained, the types of runs that the guys are having the most success with, more times than not, it's something that's going more outside zone than is able to cut back or bend back, or we just break it and then we get to the next level. I think also at times, kind of like you said, like if it is intended to be an inside run, that it has kind of bounced, which that's not always a bad thing, because usually with your inside run you have a tight end coming back across, or you just have the numbers that are there. So it's a few cutback lanes, especially with the inside zone, that either you hit it or you don't, but typically that's not the way the play design is going. So it's not usually something that people always go to. But at the same time, yeah, I'd have to agree that majority of the run success has been when guys have been able to get to the edge, or especially whenever they're able to get to the second level and they haven't had to change direction yet with the type of backs that we have.
Well, I think that's also a testament to the blocking that we have out there. You know, Dom, Braden, Zane, you know, Schumann, those guys, Christian out there. That's blocking, because you know, again, you're only having success if there's holes there. And I think if you go back to almost all the outside runs, there's at least good initial blocking to Spring Will or Spring Dev or Spring Jalen there. So I want to give those men their credit too, because you know, I mean, we are a running team. I mean, the running offense was the offense for the first, I don't know, half of the season. So and a lot of that was on the perimeter. So I do want to give those men credit there. Now I want to touch on what you said earlier about getting, you know, other guys looks, and I feel like we've seen that maybe the past couple of games. You know, like I feel like we saw some different things, right? We saw Lamet tackle some. You know, I feel like we've seen different guys in the secondary. We've seen more of Ryan Stewart than we did at the beginning of the season. Now, I know when you were there in 2022, there wasn't a whole lot of you all seniors, but did you kind of notice a similar thing where kind of towards the end, you know, where there's really not there's not a pot of gold at the end? Like, did you see the staff start to maybe move guys around more, put newer faces in there? Like, what was that for you kind of towards the end of that 2022 season?
Yes, it was definitely something that I seen that was kind of happening over the course of the year. Most of it was kind of out of necessity, because if you think of, you know, just the type of plays that we were trying to run, stuff like that, they really started, you know, drawing things up for, you know, some of the newer players, younger players that were able to hit on those, and we definitely relied on them. I know that, my last game, I think Andrew Carney rushed for over 100 yards. If you look throughout the year, Oscar Hammond, being a true freshman, was able to make plays. And so I think it was something that was kind of, you know, over the course of the year that we kind of just out of necessity relied on those guys. I don't think it was necessarily an intentional, like, you know, oh, we're going to play the newer guys, or, oh, we're trying to get the old guys out of it. I don't think it was anything intentional like that. But at the same time, like, you can definitely see that those guys, from the work they put in, like the confidence that they built up throughout the year, that, yeah, you know, it's definitely that was definitely become, you know, time for them to take over, and that they were able to take things over and run with it once my senior class was gone at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Carney 100-yard game. I wanted to be known that the lead fullback in that game was Peyton Scott. I want to give a shout out to P. Scotty. He reached out to me yesterday to reiterate the fact he was the first person to jump in the waterfall on senior day. So he kind of wants it known. Anybody, anybody that does it afterwards is following in his lineage. So I just want to put that out there. Shout out there to P. Scotty, Peyton Scott, the running backs coach down there at Mustang, wishing him the best of luck in the postseason. Um, yeah, I mean that, and I feel like that's just very telling of the team you all had there, where Peyton wasn't 100%, and you asked the man to play fullback, and instead of griping about it, he goes out there and helps Andrew have his career day rushing. Um, Speaking of rushing, I feel like the story Saturday was the rush defense. I mean, I know we held Washburn to 59 yards rushing, but we held Missouri Southern to 23 yards rushing on 18 carries. And I think that's very impressive, because you're going to say, well, they only ran the ball 18 times. But then they only ran the ball 18 times because they weren't getting any yardage. And I feel like at times this season, maybe that hasn't been the case. What did you see from a front seven standpoint Saturday that really led to the best defensive outcome that we've seen this season?
They were just physical at the point of attack. I mean, there was multiple times where the running backs were having to completely stop their feet because so much penetration had gone through. There are times where, they're just getting a full head of steam and they're instantly getting hit right at the line of scrimmage for minimal gains. So I think, kind of like you said, they were kind of forced behind the sticks, so they had to throw out of necessity. So obviously, you could say like that could play in either or's favor. But for what they did show, I mean, that's exactly what you want from the defense, and especially when offenses put up more stats and numbers than ever before. Like if you can hold people to under 100 yards, and like you're doing something pretty damn good at the defense on your defense. So just credit to that front seven, just flying around and then, just putting your chest on people and able to get people down the ground, because I mean it's tackling is one of those things. It's a skill and it's extremely hard to do regardless of who you're playing and what their schemes are. So I mean just credit to those guys for, just being on those guys.
And I can't remember if we talked about this up there in the booth, but we held the ball for roughly 17 more minutes than Missouri Southern did. And I've been saying for quite some time, I mean, probably dating back to 2022, to be honest, that if we can just have sustained drives, like even if we don't score on every drive, but we get a first down or two, I feel like this could be the outcome in most games, because I think we saw what the defense can do when they're not, on the field in three or four plays, when they have a chance to kind of rest. And I know that we have a deep rotation, but there were times this season which we talked about. I mean, even Kearney, right, where we either put them in tough spots or they were on the field far too much. And I think it kind of made some of their outings look worse than it actually was. I think Saturday was a great example of when we can keep those guys fresh. I mean, we see the dominant level that they can play at, because, I mean, as we know, one of Missouri Southern's touchdown was that fluke Hail Mary before the end of the half. How offensively, how can we build off this heading into Missouri Western, another team that isn't particularly strong offensively?
I I don't want to say you keep the same game plan, because obviously they can scheme us up too and drop a game plan that can beat ours. So I don't think you necessarily want to go in with the same game plan, but definitely have the same type of mentality that we you have to have confidence in the plays that are being drawn up, and you have to have confidence in the people that are out there to go out there and execute. And then above all, you don't ever underestimate your opponents, because again, it doesn't matter who or what at what point you're at in the season. Any team can get beat, and so you never want to underestimate your opponents or go out there and play down to their level. And I feel like that's what didn't happen against Missouri Southern. Is I feel like UCO played at their level and they didn't play down. So again, just keeping those things in mind when you're going against a team that on paper isn't uh, on the same standards as you. That doesn't mean that they can't still go out there and try to embarrass you. It's gonna be their senior day, so at the end of the day, you got some guys that are fighting for their last game ever to be played. So at the end of the day, you can never underestimate them or just look at their what's on film, or just look at paper and just assume the game is already yours. Like at some point, you have to go out there and play it. And once that happens, you just gotta not beat yourself, and then just stick to the game plan and go out there and execute.
Yeah, I mean, because as we know, I mean, the game up there last year against probably about the same that they are now. It went to overtime, and really we had some fortunate bounces there with that Kobe Stevens 92-yard punt return, and then his break up on fourth down. You look at David Williams' hit that somehow forced the fumble to go back beyond the first down marker. Then on that final drive, we should have thrown an interception on that first play, and then we go down there and we score. So we had a lot of luck in that football game. And I'm sure if you're Missouri Western, on top of we don't have anything to lose because our season is done after that, but there's some sense of we let one get away last year. And as I've said the past couple of weeks, I mean, we still have a lot to play for here. Like, if we win this game, we clinch third in the conference. We clinch a winning record for the first time since 2017, 2018 in back-to-back years. And I don't know how the postseason would shake out, but if by some happenstance Northwest and Pitt get in the playoffs, feel like as the third place team, we should be in line for whatever bowl the MIAA gets. So, like, we still have a lot to play for. And I feel like in 2022, you all were in a similar situation, that final game of like, we have a chance to at least go out with a winning record. Kind of talk about from that perspective, what was that week like for you? Because obviously, there wasn't, like a guarantee of a postseason. Excuse me. But there was we do want that 6-5. We do want to say we had a successful season. What was that week of preparation like? Was it any different than other weeks? Was there added pressure? What was that like going into the Missouri game back in 2022?
I didn't feel like there was any added pressure. If anything, I felt like guys were, it wasn't like guys did anything different, but you could just feel that they were kind of more so bought in, because I felt like they understood that, hey, this is like going to be most likely the last game of the season. For me, it was more emotional than most weeks, just because you start thinking about over the years, like how much football you've played, and getting to this point in your career, and Doral at the seniors, talking to just the team at different points during the week. So it was a lot more emotional, but also for me, I kind of wanted to play down the situation, treat it just like it was any other week. Because I feel like at this point, after 6 years, 17 total years, it's like, why would you want to change things up just because it's it's the end? And so I went through the same routine I've had the entire time. My nightly routine, the treatment I went and got, getting taped up, not wearing any sleeves, like all that stuff was pretty much the same for me. And one of the things I was kind of worried about was I was just wondering and making sure my family's going to be there on time for all the senior day stuff. So like I wasn't really too worried about the game being played, because I know the game is gonna handle itself. But I think it was just more so just like trying to take in like each of the last moments you had. And I was being reminded from Oscar and Carney, they're like, Daunte, this will be your last hard Tuesday practice that you ever have. Like just every day it was something new, weird, that's like oddly specific, like this be your last whatever. So they definitely let me know that this was gonna be it for me. But I mean, but again, that's just a normal week. Just being with those guys it was always, lighthearted. We had each other's backs. It was fun. There was a lot of love that went around. So and honestly, more ways than one, it was kind of just like a regular week.
And I know the seniors that I was able to talk to after the game. I know a lot of them verbalize that there's still one more game, like the season's not over, the job's still not done, because I think they recognize what is at stake. And I was talking to several of the underclassmen that are leaders, that they also understand how big getting a win Saturday would mean for those guys, just as much as getting the win this past Saturday. So I do think mentally, from what I have heard and seen, I think we are in a good spot, because I think they all recognize that even though the season hasn't gone anywhere near how we had hoped, that still by some happenstance we can still salvage a successful season and maybe even get back to the postseason in some way, shape or form. We have another comment from Mr. Williams. I think Daunte will enjoy this comment. He says, I'd like to see us throw the ball a little bit more and possibly some more tight end pass situations. I think second down situations, a lot of times we should be passing. Now, before I see Dante's grid, so I know obviously he would like a tight end pass every down, but but um, I do kind of agree with that. I think it's just tough because running has been our bread and butter, and I think at times we've seen the pass game kind of taper off, and it's not so much like on jet or on the line. I think it's just I don't the pass game just really hasn't been there for us consistently, and I say that as Schumann is second in the country in and receiving yards. But like I felt like it just hasn't consistently been there. As far as the tight ends go, listen, I've been an advocate ever since 2021 of we need to use the tight ends more. And I said that all offseason that we should get Dom more involved, just given, what we had returning at receiver and the ability that he has. And I think, when he's got the looks, since of Missouri, what was that, Washburn, right? I think we've seen that he can do some serious damage for us. What are your thoughts on that, Daunte? I know you agree about the tight end passes, but in terms of the second down play calling, do you think there should be some more passes? Do you like the play calling? It's just the execution thing. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it really all depends on how successful you are on first down, because I think kind of where we run into issues at is because us trying to be better in the run game with things. But also at times you've seen where we shoot ourselves in the foot, so now we're behind on things. That can kind of mess up a lot of the flow in the game plan as far as like to get your tight end available, because now you're in these backed up positions, and obviously going to drop more because they're expecting the pass. So now there's just more bodies to have to try to navigate through before you can even get to your tight end. So I think especially if you're really trying to get to your tight end on second down, you have to be successful on first down. That way, whether it's a short gain or a medium game, whatever it is, you're not going to be hurt by if the gain is minimal, because now you're sitting at third and medium, third and short. So I think it's kind of more of you got to think afterwards about the success of that play, but then after, trying to get first downs and things like that. I think also what helps tight ends out is, opening is being able to run the ball. And so that's kind of what happens when you get tight ends that can do both, is that will open up some of their routes as well too, is because now teams are expecting the run. We've been run heavy and like, oh, now you got a tight end slip into the flat, or hey, like this time he's been, like hammering in on the backers real hard, and then like, oh, now he slips him and now he's wide open. So I think it's a lot of, just the chess match that goes on. And I think that whenever we've been backed up, that doesn't favor tight ends usually, and especially, the ones that we have where, they're not just, receivers that, put on weight. They're actually bigger body guys that can do both. So I think really just staying ahead on first down, it could open up the tight ends for second down.
And I think another thing too that we both noticed Saturday, I felt like Missouri Southern probably the best I've seen a defense covered that, bootleg where Dom is usually open in the flat. I mean, they had that covered, I think, all but one time, and I think Dom was able to get a catch off that. But I think the vast majority, they did a good job defending that. And like you said, that he's had great success off that because of the run game. You go back to his 2 touchdowns against Central Missouri, they're both all play action passes because they bit on the run, and he was just open there free. So I think this is probably been, I mean, at least probably numbers wise, definitely Dom's most successful season in the pass game. I would like to get it more involved, but I also think some of that too is on scouting reports, right? It's going to say stop 15, stop 5, and now for some reason people aren't stopping 15 because he's getting like 10 to 12 catches a game. But I think that's also contributing to it too. And that's why I've said, we need that consistent second, third option out wide. Like I know Christian's been very good for the most part, right? But like we've seen flashes from Hagan, we've seen flashes from Gage, right? Like if we could just consistently get more, I think that would open more up for Dom, just because defenses can't necessarily key on that. Mr. Williams also said, just a compliment to our receivers this year, I think they do a good job of making up for the absence of Terrell Davis, for example, Ashton Schumann. Yeah, I think Schumann's done a great job. I know Daunte's really pointed this out, that I think since that Washburn game on, we've done a better job of manufacturing touches for him. It almost feels like what we used to do with JT, and I felt like what we did in 2019 with Dustin, that we have to get him going early, and I still don't quite understand, similar to Terrell last year, why he doesn't get more attention. It seems like he's a lot of one-on-one, a lot of favorable matchups, which but Schumann's going to win more time than not, similar to how it was with Terrell last year. I mean, the man was leading all of the football in receiving yards, and you don't put anybody over the top. I mean, I'm not complaining, but to me, it was just interesting to see how they defended him. And it's kind of the same with Schumann since we moved him into the slot. I feel like he's just got a lot of better looks, and it could be some good route running as well. What kind of are your thoughts on that? Because I know that was something we had pointed out early in the season was like we've got to get Schumann going, and then ever since Washburn, he's been on a tear. What kind of are your thoughts on him on the receiving core as a whole? You know, given we had major losses from last year's team.
Kind of like what you said, I feel like he has stepped up into that number one role extremely well. I felt as though, like exactly like you said, he's someone who needs, in my opinion, I say 12 to 15 targets a game. That should just be the normal standard for him because you know he's going to come up with anywhere from 8+ of those. So I think he's done extremely well stepping into this new role. I think that, you know, with the type of receiver that he is, I think he's just extremely hard to cover and guard. I think, like you said, his route running has been, you know, extremely well, and I think what makes it tricky with him is his change of pace. You know, when it comes to getting to the top of the routes, you know, just like being able to break down and get in and out the routes, that's something that most receivers aren't able to do, and because of that, guys are able to, you know, get out their breaks quicker, you know, and shorten the distance on there, you know, get their hands in on the ball. So I think that his route running is extremely underrated, and I don't know why teams aren't trying to, you know, cover him more than what they have. But I think if you look at, you know, last year, the receivers that we have, I mean, you had, you know, a solid 2-3 option, but then also you had guys that, you know, maybe weren't the stars, but that would come in and have impacts in the game. And that just hasn't been the case this year. And so obviously there's, you know, still holes to be filled. But I think that just goes to show you how deep the wide receiver room as a whole was last year, that there are these many holes to try to fill. And so I think it's, you know, it's not to discredit to the receivers that are there this year. It's just more of a credit as to, you know, what was there last year. But I think also you've seen the receivers, you know, show glimpse and, you know, they've made strides in the entire year. So I think that, you know, following this trajectory, the wide receiver room for the next, you know, 2-3 years should, you know, grow to be something that I think is pretty explosive and dynamic if they, you know, able to keep everyone, you know, add new pieces, you know, that come in year in and year out. But I mean, I'm excited for the wide receiver room as a whole because I think there's a lot of plus and upside to them, and they have guys that are getting just experience now. So a lot of the question marks and, you know, what ifs won't be there because they've already been through it and there's familiarity and like the game's going to slow down, understand the offense a lot more, and, you know, just being a lot more comfortable. And I think that's going to be something you see here in these next couple of years with them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, the receiving core is really similar to 2023, and I know pretty much everybody on that receiving core of last year's team was on that 2023 team, sans a few transfers, and we really did get what we were expecting to get out of that unit. And I think, like to your point, having that full season together, if the bulk return, I mean, because we saw in 2024, I mean, the only addition to that room was Schumann, right? Because TD was on 2023, Ridgeway, Delso, Christian Romero. Those were all guys that were already there. And so I think if we return the bulk, because I think every receiver is returning, at least, you know, barring transfers, right? And I think another thing too is we got to look at the fact, because you mentioned, you know, the bottom guys last year. I mean, having a Madison Ridgeway, having a Christian Romero was huge. I mean, we were what, 6 deep at receiver last year with minimal drop off, and we were supposed to have Christian again. He had to fortunately medically retire. I was expecting a big season from him, and we've also been slowed by injuries too. You know, Ben Harmon got hurt. Christian Valeriano was banged up early, which was unfortunate because, as we've seen, when he's healthy, he's a very good receiver. And I think him and Schumann will be a nice 1-2 punch next year. But right, we haven't really seen we were hoping to see out of guys like Zayden Martinez or Javon Thomas, and more consistency from a guy like Hagen Hacker. So I think to your point, there's definitely talent there. And I think we saw it at times this season. I think we saw it against Emporia, saw it against Central Missouri, right? We've seen it from Schulman. We've seen it from Chris now that he's healthy. And so I think there is a lot to like in that receiver room. I still think we need either a couple of more guys to step up, or we have to bring in a couple of more guys. And I know we've got a few guys redshirted. So, I'm optimistic. I believe in Coach Curley. I mean, I feel like he's gotten the most out of the majority of the receivers that he's coached. So I feel confident we can get a better season there. And it also hurts too. We got to look at the fact too. Jet was hurt too. So, going from an experienced All-American to an inexperienced for a few games in Clayton, I'm sure there were opportunities there. That was just missed just based off that. Looking at the Missouri Southern game, too, who stuck out to you the most?
It's really hard to just pick one guy because it was just a whole lot of plays were just being made like all across the board. I felt like Gabe Grazier, Montreal Lee, the two of them just working together, I feel like they work pretty well together as far as being guard and center in that relationship that they have. I'll obviously always watch my tight ends. That's always got to show support there. Defense, I'd have to say the secondary because I felt like they were obviously throwing the ball a lot more than they were running it. So I felt like the secondary did a pretty good job, just, not letting people get behind them, just not getting diced up because it's kind of tricky whenever, you could be going against a team that you're just better than, but athletes are still athletes. So that's one way, teams can kind of hurt you if, they just have real athletic guys or guys that are just pretty good at catching the ball and just finding a knack to come down with it. So I felt like the secondary, they had my attention as well too.
And I'm glad you mentioned that because I wanted to touch on that too. I think the secondary has been a weird unit because I know we had a lot of turnover there too, just the graduation, Mosley, Kobe, JK. But I feel like early, huh? Oh yeah, Buckeye too. I got a Buckeye. Yeah, yeah. So see, I mean, we had a lot there, and I feel like it almost reminded me of 2022 in a way too, where like that first half of the season, we were kind of throwing guys back there. I think we just had to, and then I feel like once we found that solid group, I think really at that point the biggest Achilles heel, right? We did have several busts. I think you go to Central Missouri, we had a bust there. I think you might have had one against Washburn. There was a stretch of games where there was a massive bust that cost us, and we also would have penalties. We'd have pass interferences in untimely spots. We'd have holdings in untimely spots. Right? We would give up a completion in an untimely spot. But I think to me, the past, especially from Emporia on down, I really feel like we haven't had major busts. I felt like while there is still some penalties, I mean, that's just going to happen. But I felt like it's been a much better unit. And to your point, I mean, I know Missouri Southern's not, UCM by any means, but when you hold them to 16 of 38 for a $140 with a long of 31, I mean, I feel like you're doing something right there. And to me, what was more impressive was just the sheer number of guys that were out there, and you didn't see drop off. So I do want to give Coach Pearson his credit there because that looked kind of shaky early on, and I feel like it's been, I want to say a strength, but I mean it's definitely been significantly better than what it has been. So I do want to give them credit there. To me, offensively, the standouts I would say would probably be Jet. It wasn't it didn't wow you, but I felt like it was a turnover free game. I feel like I thought he did a good job of not putting the ball in harm's way, of running when need be, throwing it away when need be. It looked like a vintage Jet Huff game, and I felt like really outside of Emporia, we really haven't seen that. And it's not all the man's fault, but I was impressed by that. I was also impressed by Jalen. I think this is the healthiest that he's looked since the ankle injury. I mean, I think we saw the cuts he was doing and the moves that we just haven't seen from him. So I think that also was a takeaway. And then defensively, I mean, I got to look at Reese Roller. I mean, you talk about a guy that's just had, in my opinion, a fantastic season, especially these past couple of games. I mean, he's living in the backfield. He had an interception against Kearney. He's had deflections. He's the guy that's really jumped at me as like this could be a dude next year for us. Like him and Jack could really be top 2 linebackers in this conference. That's saying a lot because as you know, MIAA has always had really good linebacker play. So I think seeing the emergence of Reese was good, and then I've still been high on Cameron Dunn as well. I think he and I could be wrong. So if you feel like I'm wrong on this, Daunte, please feel free to just say you got too much dip on your chip. I get some Rob Fuentes vibes from him. Like he might not be as long as Rob was, but I think the impact he has rushing the passer, I think really pushing the tackle back. And I know he had a sack, but I just think that consistent pass rush you see when 5 is on the field, I think really reminds me of what Rob was doing, because I felt like regardless if Rob got there or not, I mean, you saw Rob rushing the passer every single snap. And I feel like I've seen that a lot out of Cameron, especially against Fort Hays. Am I wrong on that assessment though? You think I'm shortchanging here?
No, I think there are definitely the similarities there. I'd say the similarities are between him and then Justin Stewart, because Justin Stewart was a guy that was freakishly athletic, and I don't think people truly understand it, but it was like the weight and like how fast he was. Like he was really a freak of nature, but he was more so, he wasn't really a speed or finesse guy. He was definitely more of a explosive and power guy. But if you go back and look, like he was someone who was extremely disruptive and someone that was able to anchor and be a key piece for the defense those early years for me. So I feel like the similarities are probably between the mix of those two guys. Because I think with Rob, because of how long he was, like he just didn't play football like correct or sound. Like he just kind of was able to do whatever he wanted to do because he could shoot inside, but then he was athletic and agile enough to be able to make the play if it was back in his original gap. So Rob was truly one of one, and there's not too many defensive ends that I came across that was like him, that was just so tricky to handle, and just he was always a problem for whoever was in front of him, whether it's tight ends, fullbacks, tackles. It did not matter. He was just always a handful. But yeah, he was a different type of player. So I'd say the similarities are between those two though.
Yeah, and for those of you that are new, weren't here in 2021 or 2022, we have the Bronco Rewinds here on the channel, maybe a shameless plug. But if you go back to that 2022 playlist, go back to that Northwest Missouri game, because Rob got hurt in that game. I'll never forget this. The man is literally in a cast on the sideline, and they're having to hold this man back. I will never forget looking. There was like 3 people over there in Coach Sanders, and they were trying to calm the man down. And he was only playing special teams. And I think like on that final drive, they just relented and they put him in there. And I'll never forget when Rob got the sack with one healthy arm. Like that, there was literally no quit in Rob. Like you would have to literally stretch a Rob off a football field for him to not be on there. Like when we say he's different, Rob is probably the most wired player I have ever covered. I mean that I'll say this: if you were in a back alley, Rob is the man you want in your corner. I'm It's gonna be hard.
I mean, he's just whatever you need him for, he's gonna be there for you. So I mean, and definitely what you said, he was by far the most high-strung, wired teammate that I've came across. And I mean, there's definitely been some characters like on all ends of the spectrum as far as characters and personalities go. But it was one of one. But you've never questioned, his commitment and how much he cared. And it's definitely showed in his effort, week in, week out, workouts, even the early morning ones, dudes coming in, like same energy, just, annoying at times, but it was, definitely lifted your spirits up and was definitely, much needed and a heartbeat for the team. So, I mean, he was, I mean, you can't say enough about him because not only was he, a tremendous player, but he was also a tremendous person, just cared and just gave a lot to the people in the program.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, yeah, for sure. I remember talking to him after Central Missouri, and Rob's just a Rob. When I say Rob Fuentes, different cat, I mean that to the fullest extent. So, and also shout out to Robert Fuentes. He signed with the the Minnesota Monsters, excuse me, in one of the arena football leagues. So hopefully, get to see Rob play some arena football this spring. And also shout out to Jacob Delso. I know he got an offer to play over there in Germany. So if he takes that, him and Dawson will be representing us overseas, along with Trayvon Craig, who's holding it down in Japan currently for us. So it's good to see the former Chos there doing big things. Now, when we turn our attention to Missouri Western, now Daunte, I know you played up there in St. Joseph's, Missouri. What is that environment like? What is that atmosphere like up there?
It's definitely unique. It was always one of the most physical games every single year, and I think while I was there, we split each and every year because I mean they were just always a good team. They always had a good physical defense, and then offensively they were able to always get dynamic players, and they always had one of the bigger and better O lines in the conference. So they were just all around most of the time just a good team. My first time playing up there, we had to win off of taking a safety from a punt, and so we won by 1 point. So I mean that was my first experience up there, and then my last experience was just getting shut out. So I mean just all the different ends of the spectrum of going up there. I mean that just exemplifies what it is. But like I said, it doesn't matter what the record is. Like they're a team that always has a lot of heart and they have a lot of pride in their program. So they're definitely looking at this as an opportunity for them to come out and get a win.
No, because now wasn't there one year that we won the game off that blocked KK field goal? I feel like there was 1 year where we didn't block the field goal. They were trying from like 50 yards, and we blocked the kick. I remember watching that on the MIAA network and screaming because I was like, "There's no way we're going to block this kick." And I remember the kick was blocked. I think he won that. Okay, I need to check this now because I'm pretty sure that was that 2018.
Blocked kick.
I feel like we blocked the kick in that game though. Let me. I feel like we did because I remember this. I vividly remember this. I vividly do. Let me. We were up in the game 17-0 apparently. Okay.
Score again.
Trying to skim. Oh yeah, he did right here. Jordan Stafford tipped a 45-yard field goal attempt. Yeah.
Hey, shout out to Staff. Another character. That's another character I played with. But hey, shout out to Jordan. I forgot about that.
I was like, I'm pretty sure we have blocked the kick in that football game. Okay, but yeah, no. So St. Joseph, Missouri Western in general, it's just very tough because I feel like we beat them in 18, lost to them in 19, beat them in 21 because that was the Stephon Brown debut that I think will go down in history for the two greatest players I've seen a newcomer making their first game. I will never forget when that man rolled out and just casually flicked that pass over two defenders, the Marquise King and Stride for the touchdown. I was like, Keith, I love you, my boy, but you're not gonna you're not seeing the field. You're not. You're just not. You're just not after that, bro.
No, Steph definitely made an impact. Well, I mean, we knew he was going to be different just from when we had the spring game against SNU. So it was like that was kind of the first taste, and then obviously, just being in practice with him week in and week out. So yeah, once he went out there and performed that well, I was like, hey, this dude clearly got it.
No, I'll never forget the first time I saw him. I was outside the coach's office waiting with Brandon to talk to Bobek. And I see this tall, light-skinned brother walk by. He nods. Well, he says hi to Brandon. He nods at me, and he goes down the steps. And I'm about to ask Brandon, oh, so who's the new forward Coach Hoffman has? And he turns to me in a low voice and is like, that's Steph. I was like, him. That is Steph. He's like, that's Steph. I was like, yeah, he's not going to be starting. It's just everything about that. It was like I don't know what you want to say. Like, obviously the eye test, but it's just something like he had that it factor where I'd never seen this man play. But I'm like, yeah, that's gonna be the guy. And that first game, that was the guy, because that also was what the first game of the white helmets too. So
Yeah, I mean, Keats did hold it down. That's the thing about Keats is that I feel like he's very underrated, and obviously because you want to look at the team success wasn't as good. But hey, Keats is held in very high regard for me as one of the toughest players I've played with. But I do know what you're talking about as far as like kind of like that kind of mystique about them. It was kind of the same way for me with Chastad, because when I first got to my very first workouts in the summer, it was him, Clay McKenzie, and Jay Gandera. They're all working out together, and me still having my high school, eyes and mindset on. I'm working out. I'm like, okay, so those must be the linebackers, pretty stocky built guys, like 6-packed, all that. And then we get down to running, and they didn't run with the mid defense. And so I finally asked them, I was like, who are they? They're like, that's our starting quarterback, and those are two running backs. And I was like, so this is college. That's the new standard. This is the new norm. And even still, those guys aren't even the standard, because those guys were just, above and beyond. But yeah, it was like Chaz from like day one. You just be around him, and then you start, doing 7-on-7 summer drills. You can just kind of be like, okay, yeah, this dude's the guy right here.
Yeah, and for those that are new, the best way I could describe Chaz is picture a more mobile jet. That is essentially what Chaz Stoller was. He he held the majority of records. I'm pretty sure Jet will probably break them before is all said and done. But Chaz Stoller, very good quarterback. I hold him in high regard. That's the first year I covered was 2017, and the first game I ever covered was that 55-53 win over, was it Emporia, I think, where we scored a 2-point conversion, double reverse to Josh Crockett. And I remember I walked in that game skeptical, and I'm like, I don't know what quality I'm about to see here. Like, they say this Chaz man is good. And I left that, and I remember Brannick was just like, so how you feel after that? I was like, listen, I don't know where I've been all this time, because that was fantastic football. Like that was a crazy game in itself. But yeah, I mean that's the best way to describe Chaz. And we're talking about Keats. Best way to describe Keats is, I don't take the Dawson Hurl we saw the last couple of games in 2024. But you take that for 5 years Keats was there, and you got to figure too, Keats was stuck behind some really good quarterbacks, because Keats was stuck behind Chaz. Then he got his chance, got hurt. Will Collins took over. went 6-1 down the stretch. Then was the start of the next year. He got hurt. We start Keats, starts a few games. He gets hurt. And then comes Chandler Garrett, who is, I called him UCO's Blake Bell. That's pretty much how we use the man, right? He comes in, has a good stretch to end the season. Okay, then we come in 2021, and again, all right, this is going to be Keats' team. And then, here comes Stephon Brown in there, right? And then Steph eventually gets benched, and then we get to see Keats fully healthy, probably like the first time in his career, and just played great football. Like I'm sure, like you said, we didn't have to have the wins, but if you watch those games, he gave us a chance in almost every single game. Like I will continue to sing Keats' praises because that's just a story of a guy that kept getting knocked down and setback after setback, and he kept coming. And I have tremendous respect for that, and I have tremendous respect for the way that he played at the very end. I mean, that Washburn game, the UCM game, especially that Pitt game. I mean, you're down 26-7 in Pittsburgh, Kansas in the fourth quarter, and you rally the troops and give us a chance to win. Again, that bogus illegal shift call. I can't let that go. I can't let that go. And with that streak, I'm convinced we were going to score on that drive, and we were going to win that football game. I was convinced because the way the offense was playing, Josh Moore was having a whale of a game. Rolf Fuentes was having a whale of a game. I'm convinced if they didn't call that bogus penalty, we would have won that football game. I will die on that hill that we would have won that football game.
Yeah, I'm willing to bet that's probably been the first and only time that they've ever thrown that flag, because that was just obviously, if you go back and look, yes, is he wrong? No, but at the same time, like I said, I just don't like the fact of refs deciding the games. I would rather let the players and their abilities and their will to win decide the games versus off of a technicality like that really did not have any negative or bearing effect on the play. So I mean, we definitely had confidence. We felt like we were going to go down and score again, and then just took the wins out of ourselves. But yeah, Keats was a guy. I mean, he just always had he just had setback after setback, and in between the injuries, that man has taken a lot of licks. Like, I'm telling you, I hold Keats in high regard because y'all didn't see the bruises on that man. Like, his locker was a crossing line. Like, that man definitely stood in the pocket. He took his on the chin and really held it down. So, like I said, Keats will always be held in high regard for me because just the resilience to come back over and over. Mind you, he had a knee injury in high school before he even got to UCO. So it's like you're talking 3 different knee injuries over the course of not even 10 years, probably like 6, 7, 8 years. So 3 knee injuries, having to just always have people come in to take, because there's only one quarterback, so guys come in to take the starting spot, having to be a backup, and that's its own role in and of itself. So like, I hold Keats in high regard because I mean, that guy, like, he's exactly what you want from your quarterback, and all the highs and lows, and just his mentality, and just never wavering. Like, that is exactly what you want from a quarterback as far as mentality, perspective, mindset. Like, that's exactly who you want.
Oh, no, for sure. And I'll tell you this, I get a similar vibe because I think I made the comparison at signing day. If he stays, I feel like Owen Jones, the true freshman from Jinx that's redshirting, I truly believe in my hearts of hearts can be a similar player for us. When I watch that tape, I'm like, this is Keats Calhoun to a T. Like, this is everything I saw, the way he stood in there, the way he maneuvered the pocket, the way he was willing. Because Keats would run if need be. Now, obviously, he wasn't just going to take off and run you over like Chandler Garrett or Steph would. But, like, he had some mobility, which, again, is impressive given the 3 knee injuries. But a lot of what I saw out of Keats I see in Owen as well. So maybe there is a chance that when he does play, I can point that out, and then we have a better comparison for you of Keats. But yeah, no, we're both Keats Calhoun guys. Now you mentioned the flag,
hold on.
and we took. Oh, go ahead.
Hold on, one more thing. Fun fact: Keats was also All-State in basketball. So before, I'd say probably the second and third knee injury, that guy was mobile and pretty elusive. So, I mean, definitely the knee injuries, they took their toll on him. But the guy's an athlete.
Now that I did not know. I
Yeah.
was not aware that he was a hooper. Okay.
He comes from a basketball family. His wife was a hooper. I'm pretty sure I think it's either his dad or his wife's dad is like in the Oklahoma Coaches Hall of Fame for basketball or something like that. So yeah, he came from a basketball family before really football or anything like that.
And that's crazy because he's like one of the state's all-time leading passers. So that's pretty impressive. That is okay. Okay. Well, shout out to Keith Calhoun.
I hold Keith in high regard now. And was a shooter too. Thing, the lefty shooter.
Shout out to Keith. Shout out to Keith. Now, speaking of flags now, because I know we talked about this in the press box. Now, I've been saying this for years, that we don't get the calls. I think anybody that watched that Fort Hays game this year, I think can attest. They should have been called for like 15 holding calls. I don't understand, you got to draw blood in the MIAA to get a holding call. And I remember talking to the Emporia guy and other guys where they're like, they just don't call it anymore. So people are teaching holding. Now, as someone that did have to block in this conference, was that the case? Did you feel like you could hold more times than not, and that penalty would not be called against you?
You are not gonna believe me when I tell you this, but I am telling you this 100% telling the truth. I really did not hold that often. And I for sure didn't get called for it until the later part of my career. And so that's just my experience. So whether you could say it's good by me or bad by the officials, that's my story that I'm sticking with. But for the most part, it is pretty atrocious, some of the, I guess, no calls that are had, whether it's holding, the different pass interference. I mean, my thing is, if you're going to be a certain way with the rules, be consistent about it. Don't be inconsistent, because that's where you'll get me at. But even still, it's like there are certain things where I'm like, it's pretty blatant that should have been a call either way, like for UCO and against us, that I don't know. And so obviously you can look at that as a player, just be like, okay, understand and play with it, because if they're going to let you play, then, obviously play, to what they allow you to. But at the same time, I think more so with me, it's really be the pass interference. That's the one that gets me, because on one hand, you allow them to be physical and you don't throw it, but then it's like little bit of contact, or you just see tremendously great technique within the parameters and you're calling that. So it's just like, pick one and kind of stick with it. Either you're going to let the guys be physical, and if that's the case, then obviously, just go about it that way. Or if you're going to be, real ticky-tack with it, then do that. But just stay consistent with whichever way you go about things.
No, the sad part is, whichever way they go, we're never on the right side of it. Like I don't know what they have against us, because at this point I feel like it's personal somewhere down there, because every time there's a blatant flag against that would help us. There's nowhere to be found. We sneeze on a guy sometimes. Oh, here comes the flag. So it's like, I don't, you know what I mean? It's like, again, and I feel bad for Darius Hampton. I could probably show you 20 examples of that man getting held blatantly in front of referees, and there's just nothing there. And I'm like, I don't understand, because then yet Mac does something far less than that, and we get a holding call. So like, I don't understand. It's unfortunate that is just the case, but I mean, this has been going on for quite some time. It's just truly unfortunate. I'm not entirely sure what the hate is there, but I guess it is what it is. Now, you talked about the Missouri Western being a physical team, what it is like to play up there. What do you think the guys have to do Saturday in order to walk out of there winners?
Kind of like I touched on earlier, definitely don't play down to the level of your opponent. You definitely still have a job to do, regardless if this is the last one or if there's a potential one after this. There's still a job to be done, and the season is not over. This is just going to be the last game. So, obviously, you want to approach this game. You don't want to take them lightly whatsoever. But really, just like the game plan has seemed to work. I think we just have to go out there and execute it. I think whenever, your play and time is called, then, it's obviously time to step up and make the play. Then once you're there in the position and make the play, and really just don't do too much, because obviously the way you're going to help out the other team is by hurting yourself. And you've seen that that's something that we've shown a tendency to do. And then other teams then take advantage of that as well, too. So I think eliminating and self-inflicted wounds and penalties, I think that would be a big major key. And then I think also kind of looking back at last week is offensively, you're not in any rush. Like, control the pace of the game, and you're going to see it play out in your favor. And I think one thing we're also seeing is that having long sustained drives and coming away with points, like, it does a big psychological factor to the other team. It also energizes your defense, but also you're putting points on the board. So I think, don't get into a rush of things. Don't just, put the ball in harm's way just because you're trying to, make a play or push the ball down the field. But obviously ball security is always going to be most important thing offensively. But then when you think of defensive wise, I mean, just play your keys. And this is the last game of the season. So that typically teams are going to try to, hit you with a few trick plays at some point, or whether it's on special teams, that's going to be something that might get called or drawn up. So obviously stick with your keys and don't just, relax, because then teams can sense that. And then once you start to give them, confidence and they feel as though they have a chance, and that's whenever teams become especially dangerous. So defensively, just come out strong and physical to start the game off and really set the tone, and just don't let up.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we can get a consistent 4 quarters, I like our chances in the football game. I mean, much like they were last year, much like Missouri Southern is, they're not an overwhelming team. Nothing. Now, I will say they do have size at receiver, which does concern me. They have a few 6'5" guys, but the production numbers, it doesn't wow you, right? And Missouri Southern the same way. But I go back, Missouri Western was the same way last year, and I felt like it was a tale of 2 games, because prior to that weather delay, which I'm hoping we don't have again, but prior to that weather delay, right, we were dominating that football game about as best as you could, given the rain and the wind, right? But then after the weather delay, we came out flat and they came out energized. And I think what's concerning is we saw the way the Kearney game ended. And so my hope is, if we go out there, play a full game like we did last week, like we did against Emporia, I like our chances to come out and win the football game, because I feel like we are the more talented team, but I've felt that way for all but 2 games this past season, really. And so I think, like I said, if we execute at a high level, we keep the sustained drives, we have turnover free. I do like our chances of walking out of there. And I mentioned earlier, what is at stake? Regardless if Kearney wins, if we win, we clinch third. Like, there's no mathematical way, because right now Kearney has 4 conference losses. We only have 3. So even if they win and we win, they still can't catch us. Now, if we lose, then There's a chance we finish anywhere from third to what, fifth? Because like UCM, Kearney, what is it? There's like 3 or 4 teams kind of that have that 4-loss range. So there's a chance we could go from third to middle of the pack. Also, winning season is at stake. And again, like I mentioned before, I don't know how the bowls will shake out because I haven't seen us personally get to a bowl with just 6 wins. Even though if Pitt and Northwest get in, logically, if we finish third, we would be the team that should take that spot. But Kearney also has 7 wins. And I've seen, was it the Texarkana Bowl? And the teams listed, I saw Kearney's name in there. So I'm not entirely sure how that shakes out. All we can do is just control what we can control. Let's go out there Saturday, 2 p.m. and have another great showing, end the season off with a win, get back-to-back winning records, still finish third. And I think this maybe is what's most encouraging is, right, we fell short of goals in 2023, right? But that 2023 team had a losing, well, I know we had a losing record overall. I think we had a losing conference record. Okay. If we can still finish 6-5, third in conference, 6 conference wins, and you're telling me that's a down season? Because listen, the Kearney guys, I think they said this is like their second winning season in the MIAA. So, like, you got to put that for comparison. So if you're telling that the worst version of this team is still the best version of several other teams in this conference, I think that's very telling. I also think it's very telling that we still, barring transfers, return a lot of production. And I also think it's telling that really outside of Northwest and outside of Permian Basin, I feel like we just beat ourselves. I feel like you can point to almost every other game and say it wasn't so much the other team, it was really us. And so I think that's the encouraging part is, if we salvage a 6-win season, like you were saying earlier, that should give the guys some confidence, some momentum that, listen, like if this is us at our worst when we're not playing our best and we're still able to cobble together a top 3 finish in one of the toughest conferences and a winning record, then imagine what we can do when we get our best like we saw last year. So I'm sincerely hoping we end with a win Saturday again. That is a 2 p.m. kickoff. I also would keep an eye out on that Northwest Pitt game. I think that's a 3 p.m. kickoff. They're playing up there in Kansas City. So I know Northwest has already at least clinched a share. So that means former UCL tackle Reese Trammell is back-to-back MIAA champs. So congratulations there to Reese. But if Pitt beats them, then I think they share at that point because they would have beat Northwest, but Northwest beat us and we beat Pitt. So I'm not sure how that affects the playoff stuff. So I would ideally like a Pitt State win. Just I think that might keep our slim postseason hopes alive if we do indeed win. But it should be a good one. It should be a good one. Daunte, you have any final remarks here?
Just kind of reiterating what you were saying is that, if you finish with a winning record and I think even more so third in conference, then I think the chances to get a bowl game, definitely go up higher. There was, like you said, the Texarkana Bowl. There was the Corsicana Bowl that, obviously I played in. And I think there might be one other one that,
There's the Heart of Texas Bowl.
Yes. So, I mean, there's potential options for the team to still continue to play. And I will say it's very different but special, obviously practicing, past the season ending and getting into postseason. I never got to experience that in high school. So it was a weird kind of, I won't say weird, but kind of foreign, just approach to, the week because then you have Thanksgiving break coming up. So you get time to go like beat your family for Thanksgiving, but then you also got to be like right back at it because you have a game like in the next week and a half. So it's a real like interesting time, and I mean for anyone to be able to experience it, I mean that's definitely a plus because not too many people have a postseason after the regular season. So, I mean, if obviously you want the guys to win, but if there's even a shot or chance that they can even play one more time, they get to suit up one more. I say why not? Because I mean, you obviously have already put in all this work anyways. Now you're gonna get to have another opportunity to not only come away with a trophy, but that's another ring. Like that's a ring to win bowl games. So I don't see why you wouldn't want to take the opportunity to, go for something like that. So, but yeah, I just have confidence in the guys, and I feel like they just stick to what they're supposed to do and do what they need to do. Then obviously they'll come out with a win.
Well, see, and I'm glad you mentioned that because a lot gets thrown around, especially at the FBS level. Oh, there's too many bowls. Bowls are meaningless. No one cares. Yada yada yada. But I push back on that because I'm like, you don't understand. Sure, maybe to the casual viewer, okay, are you interested in say, I don't know, Kent State versus I don't know, Florida International? Okay, maybe not. But you got to understand from the perspective of the players, right? Like after that, that is it. Like there's no more football. There's no like that is it. And so like to me, anytime a guy can extend their career, get one last game in, like I'm all for it. And like you said, I mean, for the vast majority of the seniors here, I mean, once that final game is over, like that's it. I mean, there is no more. So like obviously you want to try to extend your career, even if it is just for one more game. Because like you said, that's more time you have to put on the pads, that's more time you have around those guys, and that's more time you can, milk out of a game that's taking you so far. Now, finally, I do have to ask. Now you mentioned because you went home for Thanksgiving, but then you had to be back. Now, did that prevent you from going as hard on Thanksgiving dinner, knowing you had to be back, or did you still go hard at the dinner table?
Uh, I did not go that hard because, um, and this was kind of just something I did throughout my whole career. Like I wasn't very big into partying and just doing whatever to my body, especially in season, because I told you I lived in fear that at any point if we have to do sprints that I could get cut. So it's like that was something that was always at the back of my mind, that obviously you don't want to come in out of shape or do anything to hinder yourself, and as far as getting into the week, putting your best foot forward. So I did not go that hard on Thanksgiving. Now, 2017, I did because I was redshirt and I wasn't going to play, so I was just a practice dummy at that point. But 2018, I know for a fact I didn't, because I did not want to come back. And the first thing we're going to do is, he told us before we win, he said he's going to run the Thanksgiving off of us. What do you think that means, man? So, yeah, I did not go that hard when it came to eating Thanksgiving.
Okay, I was just curious now because I'm like that's kind of tough, I mean that's because that is the time where you normally do go hard at the dinner table. But okay, I was curious there. Okay, well, hopefully this bunch can experience the same, where they have the dilemma whether or not to go hard at the Thanksgiving dinner table because they have another game to prepare for. So that's what I'm going to hope for Saturday. And like I said, it's a 2 p.m. kickoff up there in St. Joseph. So I'm wishing everybody that makes that trip a safe trip to and from. I'll be watching on the MIAA network there. So well, I appreciate all that came out, all that support. Daunte and I, again, we appreciate your support with this new endeavor that we had this year. It kind of came together to spur of the moment. So we weren't really sure how it would work. And so we were kind of figuring it out as we go. But we'll now that this is a thing and we've gotten the groove down, we'll probably regroup at some point in the offseason, figure out how to make this even better next year. But barring any setback, we should be back next week, either in a pre-recorded episode or a live stream again. I feel like if we make a bowl, we probably gonna live stream that. But again, I appreciate everybody that came out. to the stream tonight. Again, I appreciated all your support. So hope you have a good evening. For my co-host, former All-MIAA H-back, Daunte McGee, I'm Jonathan Goudeau, aka JG Smooth. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you all later.